Hello and welcome. Tonight, Presidential Election Tribunal fixes May 8 for pre-hearing session on petitions by PDP's Atiku Abubakar and Labour Party's Peter Obi challenging the declaration of Senator Bola Tinubu as president-elect. President-elect Bola Tinubu commends Governor Nyesom Wike for his role in ensuring that the presidency returned to the South as he commissions some projects in the state. President Muhammadu Buhari launches Nigeria Agenda 2050, which seeks to create 165 million new jobs, as well as increase the country's real gross domestic product.
On business news tonight, U.S. Central Bank raises interest rates to the highest level in 16 years to tame rising prices.
In the world of sport, Nigeria's Golden Eaglets suffer first loss at the ongoing Under-17 African Cup of Nations after losing 1-0 to Morocco in their second group game.
From Abuja, the nation's capital, on World Press Freedom Day, practitioners examine challenges and solutions for a media space where journalists can freely speak truth to power.
And in international news from London, Russia says it shot down 2 drones that were targeting the Kremlin in Moscow last night and accused Ukraine of attempting to kill President Vladimir Putin.
We start off at the court, and the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal has fixed Monday, May 8th for the hearing of the petitions challenging the declaration of the President-elect Bola Tinubu. Monday's hearing is a pre-hearing session to clarify if there are any applications to pave the way for the release of the timetable for the hearing of the substantive matters. Meanwhile, the tribunal stopped receiving submissions from the petitioners on April 23rd. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, had on March the 1st declared Senator Bola Tinubu of the APC the president-elect on the grounds that he polled 8.8 million votes to defeat Atiku Abubakar of the PDP, who scored 6.9 million votes. Peter Obi of the Labour Party amassed 6.1 million votes. Disputing the results, Atiku and Obi filed separate petitions seeking orders to annul the election or declare them the winners of the polls. The PDP presidential candidate, who anchored his 7 prayers on 5 grounds, asked the Presidential Election Tribunal to declare him the president-elect. In their petition, Atiku Abubakar and the PDP argued that as of March the 1st, when Senator Bola Tinubu was declared the winner of the election, the entire results and accreditation data from polling units had not been transmitted and uploaded by the electoral umpire INEC. Peter Obi, who came third in the election, alleged that the poll was characterized by various irregularities, including the non-qualification of Senator Tinubu and his running mate Kashim Shettima to contest the election. Well, the crisis rocking the Labour Party appears to be far from over. Well, that's because today the 2 factions met at different locations in the country. While the faction led by Lamidi Apapa held a National Executive Council meeting in Bauchi, the faction led by Julius Abure described the meeting in Bauchi as a charade. Addressing newsmen at the National Secretariat of the party in Abuja, the acting National Publicity Secretary, Mr. Obiora Ifo, urged party members to disregard such a notice, as the party new membership is composed of a state party chairman and members of the National Working Committee, who are all in Abuja.
So I address you now, 6 of them, in furtherance of the directives from their paymasters, are meeting in Bauchi for a fake and unlawful NEC. Surprisingly, this is coming barely 2 weeks after the party held its very successful NEC in Asaba, Delta State, that was attended by virtually all NEC members, including 36 states, chairmen and secretaries, all members of National Working Committee, most of the elected members of the National Assembly, leaders and presidential candidates of the party, including Mr. Peter Obi, party trustees, including the Nigerian Labour Congress and TUC, all of them were present and in their numbers. One of the invitees of the purported NEC is our leader and presidential candidate, Peter Obi, who incidentally, just this Monday, was in a national television where he referred these characters as paid agents and as hirelings. He also made it clear that he had never met with the so-called Apapa all his life, and that there were no issues in the party, and that the reported crisis is just the rascality by paid agents bent on derailing the party to pursue justice.
Political and religious leaders as well as traditional rulers from Imo East Senatorial District have passed a vote of confidence on Governor Hope Uzodimma for what they call his giant strides in infrastructure development in the last 3.5 years. The leaders from the 9 local governments that make up the zone gathered at the state capital for a stakeholders meeting where issues of equity and the November 11th governorship election were top on the agenda.
Imo East Senatorial Zone, popularly called Owerri Zone in Imo State, has one of its major towns which has enjoyed most of the developmental, visible and infrastructural strides of the Uzodimma-led administration in the last 3.5 years. The construction and rehabilitation of over 70 roads in Owerri, the reconstruction of the Imo House of Assembly that has been left to rot for years, the reconstruction of the Owerri-Okigwe-Owerri-Olu Road, the multi-million naira balloon technology flood and erosion control at Chukwuma, Nwoha, amongst others, are just a few testimonies. That's the reason for this meeting of stakeholders and political leaders from Owerri Zone to show their appreciation to the governor and support his second-term bid.
He's an excellent governor. He deserves what he got. We are ready to endorse him anywhere. His nobility is endorsed by the 3 zones. Although we complete their tenure for 8 years. Owerri is our turn after the governor. That's what the Charter of Equity represents.
We, the zone, we appreciate it. I would like us to also advise our brothers and sisters coming up for this November election to please step down. To please step down. We are talking for Owerri Zone.
Then they pass a vote of confidence on the governor.
Support the motion, say aye. And those who don't support, say nay. The aye have it.
Speaking to journalists after the meeting, the deputy chairman of the Imo Council of Elders reiterates the stand of the council on the Charter of Equity.
Because he has done so well, he has connected Imo to national grid. So what else are we talking about? We'll keep repeating what we have said. Hope Uzodimma has done what no other governor has done within 3 years plus. And you have the test of putting this in the eating because you are saying it yourself. It's not just that we're just saying.
Ahead of the November 11 governorship election in Imo State, which is 6 months away, political parties are waiting for INEC to lift the ban on campaigns in June, so political activities can begin in full swing.
Still talking politics, you may call it a dress rehearsal for his presidential roles by May 29th and even beyond. Well, President-elect Bola Tinubu has commissioned the 12th flyover bridge built by Governor Nyesom Wike in Rivers State, saying the inauguration of the project demonstrates another way of deepening national unity. Senator Tinubu performed the ceremony moments after arriving in Port Harcourt, the state capital, on a 2-day visit. He spoke on the need for elected officials to focus on governance now that politics is over, even as he hailed Governor Wike's contribution to his victory at the presidential polls.
The President-elect, Senator Bola Tinubu, alights from a private jet at the Port Harcourt International Airport to the waiting hands of political leaders across party lines, led by his host, Governor Nyesom Wike. His first assignment on this two-day visit is to inaugurate the 1,000-meter-long 12th flyover along Rumokota-Rumola Road in Obiakpo local government area, and the residents welcome him and his entourage, including former APC chairman Bisi Akonde, Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila, serving and past governors, and members of the National Assembly with warmth.
The voice of the voiceless. The capacity project.
An excited Governor Wike shares insight into how he executes projects and blames the Procurement Act for the proliferation of abandoned projects. He also appeals to the federal government to consider refund for executing federal projects.
I found out that part of the problem why we're having so much uncompleted projects has to do with our procurement law. If you read the procurement law, it will take it very, very long to complete projects, because how much does our procurement law, of course the one of the federal, how much does it say? 15% to 30%. When you give a contract of 15%, before you pay another money, inflation is almost every day. And then they will come for variation because of high cost of building materials. But in our own case, I called Mr. Speaker. I said, listen, we can't continue with this. We have to amend our own procurement law and give us the latitude where we can pay a company we know that has the capacity to deliver within time. We pay that company 70%. And that is why today, no project being handled by Jonas Berger that is uncompleted. Not one.
On his part, the president-elect defends his victory and commends Governor Wike for insisting on the Southern presidency.
I went through a gruesome campaign, fought hard, beat myself, supported by many of you, and I won. Fair and square. He did not choose to serve his own interests, not about him. Rather, the interests of the nation. You promoted unity. You promoted fairness. You championed justice. Thank you.
On the request for refund by sub-nationals for executing federal projects, this is Senator Tinubu's reply.
I owe you nothing. It's your road. You can chuckle me and make a demand. You are the one living on this road. I commend your effort. You have to lobby me to collect.
He then inaugurates the road.
Let me see you. Let me see.
The president-elect is expected to commission the new magistrate court complex on day 2 of his visit before leaving the state.
In part 2 after the break, President Muhammadu Buhari launches Nigeria Agenda 2050, which seeks to create 165 million new jobs as well as increase the country's real domestic product. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Presidential Election Tribunal fixes May the 8th for pre-hearing session on petitions by PDP's Atiku Abubakar and Labour Party's Peter Obi challenging the declaration of Senator Bola Tinubu as President-elect. President-elect Bola Tinubu commends Governor Nyesom Wike for his role in ensuring that the presidency returned to the South as he commissions some projects in the state. President Muhammadu Buhari launches Nigeria Agenda 2050, which seeks to create 165 million new jobs as well as increase the country's real gross domestic product. Russia says it shot down 2 drones believed to be targeting the Kremlin in Moscow last night, accusing Ukraine of attempting to kill President Vladimir Putin. To the National Assembly, where the Senate is joining the House of Representatives and the ECOWAS Parliament to appeal to the Central Criminal Court, Old Bailey, London, for leniency in the sentencing of Senator Ekweremadu and his wife, Mrs. Beatrice Ekweremadu. The Senate's decision to appeal for clemency is after a federal lawmaker, Senator Chukwuka Utazi, raised a motion during Wednesday's plenary session. In the motion, Senator Utazi recalls that Senator Ekweremadu was a former deputy Senate president for 12 years and a former speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament and has made enormous contributions to the development of democracy in Nigeria, West Africa, and beyond. Senate President Ahmed Lawan, in his response, disclosed that he had written a letter to the British judicial authorities 2 weeks ago seeking clemency on behalf of the Senate.
Whereas this Senate is not arguing the conviction of the Ekweremadus, as ignorance of the law is no excuse, but we are forced into these circumstances in their bid to save a dying daughter, Sonia. Whereas this Senate is not in any way appealing against the conviction of the Ekweremadus, nevertheless, it is joining them in their allocutus plea by asking for clemency in the coming sentencing 2 days away. Now, this Senate resolves as follows. 1, that clemency be extended to the Ekweremadus, considering that all of the convicts were first offenders. 2, that since this matter was novel in the United Kingdom, that a novel approach in sentencing of the convicts be adopted by tempering justice with mercy, as the publicity already given to the trial was enough warning to would-be offenders in future.
I have written a letter to the British judicial officers or judicial authorities about 2-3 weeks ago, giving the history of Senator Ekweremadu, and that I did on behalf of the Senate.
Now to some cherry news, and no fewer than 80 Nigerian students stranded in Sudan are on their way to Abuja from Aswan, Egypt, on board the Nigerian Air Force C-130. The Nigerian Air Force spokesman, Air Commodore Ayodele Famuyiwa, who confirmed the development this evening, says the flight is expected to arrive at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, by 11:40 p.m. The federal government had deployed Air Peace and the Nigerian Air Force jets to airlift the country's nationals from Egypt. According to the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, about 4,000 students and at least 2 million Nigerians are resident in Sudan before the war broke out in the North African country. All right, let's get more updates, and our correspondent Dele Omoyeni is at the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport in Abuja to give us the very latest concerning the situation. Hello, Dele. What do you have for us at this moment in time?
Okay, well, good evening, Ayo. Good evening, everyone across Nigeria and the world, wherever you're watching. Well, we're live here at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja, where we're expecting about over 300 students from Aswan Airport in Egypt. Well, 2 planes left the Aswan Airport in Egypt much earlier today, and what we see is that about 270 plus of them are coming with the Air Peace flights. Another 80 plus are coming with the C-130 provided by the Nigerian Air Force. But of course, the C-130 left quite earlier in the day, around some minutes to 4. Of course, the students had been at the Aswan Airport in Egypt at about past 9 in the morning, but they couldn't begin to board because we heard that there were some luggage issues. Some had excess luggages and all of that. So they started boarding at around past 2. And of course, the C-130 was the first to leave the Aswan Airport in Egypt to bring about 80 plus students to Nigeria. About 2 hours later, the Air Peace flight also left. So the ETA for both planes, the Air Peace flight will be arriving at about some minutes past 11. That's about roughly 40-50 minutes from now. While the C-130 will be arriving at about 11:40 p.m. Local time here in Nigeria. That's what we hear. So about 300 students thereabouts. So there's a high delegation from the federal government that will be receiving them. We hear that 2 ministers, Mr. Jeffrey Oyema, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mrs. Sadiya Farouk, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, will also be here. Also, the chairman of NIDCOM, Mrs. Abike Dabiri-Erewa, will be here, and the DG of NEMA, the National Emergency Management Agency, Mr. Mustafa Ahmed, will also be here on ground to receive the students. Ayo.
All right, many thanks, Dele Omoyeni, for that update, and definitely Trust Channels Television will be there at the Nnamdi Azikiwe airport in Abuja to catch the arrival of the students when they definitely land in the country. President Muhammadu Buhari has launched the Nigeria Agenda 2050, aimed at increasing real gross domestic product growth by 7% and create 165 million new jobs across the country. The launch, which comes nearly 7 weeks after the Federal Executive Council approved the policy document on March the 15th, was conducted by the President before the commencement of the weekly council meeting. He expressed the belief that the document, which equally aims to increase per capita income of Nigeria to $33,328 per annum, to be placed amongst the world's top economies by the year 2050, will be useful for subsequent administrations. Our State House correspondent Gloria Umezuki tells us more.
Hours before President Muhammadu Buhari departed the country for London, he presided over the Federal Executive Council meeting. First, he begins by launching the Agenda 2050.
The unveiling and public presentation of the Nigerian Agenda 2050 marks yet another milestone in the annals of history of our planning experience post-independence. The broad target is to ensure that Nigeria attains per capita GDP of $33,328 United States dollars per annum, that will place among the top middle-income economies in the world by 2050.
The meeting went into a closed door after the brief ceremony. At a briefing, a recent motion by the Senate directing the government to halt the demolition of fan offices at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos.
The Senate is advisory. It's an executive function. We are not barred by any court of law, so it's an executive function, and government cannot be stopped in development, giving development for its people. If I want to pull down this hall and build a better one, who will come and stop me from doing that as a government? So I think it's not an issue. They're just overheating it, and you know why.
The Senate had argued that the motion was to forestall further strikes. However, the aviation minister maintains that the elites who are privy to the metrics of a globally acceptable airport should not condone within the airport structures made out of wood.
So for one or two individuals who will not deny Nigerians 250 million from the joy of having something that will go outside to see. Commonly people go and see, these people, these leaders, don't they travel, see Dubai? Big deal. And now you want to give something like Dubai and somebody say no.
Meanwhile, the Federal Executive Council approved the National Blockchain Policy for Nigeria, a technology the government assures will enable information and data integrity and can add $1.76 trillion to the global GDP. The Presidential Villa, Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
Right after the launch of the Nigeria Agenda 2050 by the President Muhammadu Buhari has now departed for London, the United Kingdom, to join other world leaders invited to attend the coronation of Charles III and his wife Camilla as His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Queen Consort of the United Kingdom, respectively. Ahead of the coronation on Saturday, May the 6th, the Commonwealth Secretariat is expected to host a Commonwealth Summit for presidents and heads of government of Commonwealth countries on Friday, May the 5th. According to a statement issued by the spokesperson to the President, Mr. Femi Adesina, President Buhari is billed to participate in the summit, which will deliberate on the future of the Commonwealth and the role of the youth. The President will be accompanied by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustapha, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyama, the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mongono, Chairman, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri Erewa, among others. All right, let's head to Port Harcourt, the River State capital, where Governor Nyesom Wike is having a state banquet. So let's join live in Port Harcourt.
My dear brother and friend, Your Excellencies, our dear governors, the Governor of Jigawa State, the Governor of Kwara State, the Governor of Imo State. And just yesterday, very young man, to the glory of God, we are praying you'll be sworn in as the second-time governor in Imo State. Who, of course, the youth leader of the G5. Your Excellencies, our former governors, starting from our own leader, our own mentor in the state, Sir Dr. Peter Odele, and his wife, our dear elder, our leader in this country, Chief B.C. Akonde, who came with the president-elect, our dear brother, my former boss, who's a pensioner, the former chairman of Nigerian Governors Forum, former governor of Ekiti State, Ayo. No, not Igbo, hold on. Kayode Fayemi. Ekweremadu, the former governor of Delta State, James Ibori, and his dear wife.
We're just watching the live pictures there of the River State Governor Nyesom Wike at a state banquet in honor of Nigeria's President-elect Senator Bola Tinubu, who is in River State to commission some projects. Still ahead on the news at 10, U.S. Central Bank raises interest rates to the highest level in 16 years to tame rising prices. And that's on Business News. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Let's head to the nation's capital, and Gloria Umezuke is indeed standing by at our Abuja studios. Hello, Gloria. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Ayo. The House of Representatives has directed the Clerk of the National Assembly to transmit the Bill for Constitution Amendment in order to provide uniform retirement age for judicial officers and pension rights to President Muhammadu Buhari. The decision of the House follows the passage of the bill by the Sokoto State House of Assembly, thereby meeting the provisions of Section 9, subsection 2 of the Constitution for two-thirds approval of state assemblies. The House is further asking the Gombe, Jigawa, Kebbi, Kwara, Plateau, and Taraba State Houses of Assembly that are yet to forward their resolution on the bills to do so. Well, today is World Press Freedom Day, a day set aside by the United Nations towards achieving a free press and freedom of expression around the world. Our correspondent Kayla Megwa examines the challenges and solutions that would ensure a media space in Nigeria where journalists can freely speak truth to power.
2023 is the 30th year of celebrating World Press Freedom Day. This year, the focus is on shaping a future of rights, freedom of expression as a driver for all other human rights. The indices that led to these same demands 30 years ago are still in play today. So we went to the FCT chapter of the Nigerian Union of Journalists and hear from journalists themselves on what is stifling their freedom of expression.
The world have not understand generally the work of the press or the media. They look at us as people that are spying people or in different connotation.
The reference we had is being eroded because even fake news emanate from even the journalists themselves.
Another gag on Nigeria's journalists comes from actual regulations in Nigeria's laws. On the sidelines of this World Press Freedom event, we spoke to the chairperson of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, FCT chapter, on what laws are anti-freedom of expression for journalists and what solutions can be proffered.
The broadcast industry, in particular, is hamstrung by the NBC code, and that is why we'll be talking about co-regulation. that before there is sanction, there should be a board that is made up of both government and media owners and media practitioners to look at what the infractions are, if there are any.
Freedom of expression by the press has improved greatly in Nigeria since independence, and even better since the country's return to democracy in 1999. However, the safety of journalists are still largely ignored in Nigeria. In 2022 alone, 67 journalists were killed in the line of duty across the world. One of the more recent shocking stories of violence against journalists involves a 48-year-old Indian journalist called Shashikant Warishe, who was mowed down in February this year by a car driven by a person Warishe had written an article against. In Nigeria, at least 19 journalists have been killed in questionable circumstances since the country's return to democracy in 1999. They include Zachariah Issa of NTA, Bayo Ohu of The Guardian, Titus Badejo of Niger FM, Todwe Salem of The Vanguard, as well as Enenche Akogu and Precious Owolabi, both of Channels Television, just to name a few. Apart from security, Nigerian journalists face a plethora of challenges.
Journalists in Nigeria are poorly remunerated. They are not just poorly remunerated, they are also epileptically remunerated. Where what you get at the end of the day is not commensurate with what you put in, it's a disservice to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you. In every war, the very first casualty is truth. And make no mistake about it, Nigeria is at war. A war against corruption, a war against poverty, a war against insecurity, so many wars on so many different fronts. And as these different wars continue, it is the job of journalists to ensure that truth is preserved. That way society can continue to exist with fairness and accountability. As the world celebrates World Press Freedom Day, it is the job of every government in the world to ensure that journalists are able to carry out their jobs with freedom and also be able to express themselves regardless of the situation, regardless of whose ox is God. That is the call for this World Press Freedom Day, a freedom of expression for the fourth estate of the realm. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
A chief magistrate's court sitting in the Sabo area of Yaba, Lagos, has granted bail to a leader of the Igbo community, the Ezigbo of Ajawa State, Frederick Wajugu, aged 67, who was docked before it for allegedly threatening to bring the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, to the state. Chief Magistrate Peter Nwaka granted the defendant bail in the sum of 1 million naira with 4 sureties, all of whom must be resident in Lagos. The court also ordered that one of the sureties must own a property in Lagos, which must be registered with the Land Bureau and which documents must be deposited with the court. Before the court granted the defendant bail, the prosecution had made an oral application to the effect that the remand order of the court still subsists pending the receipt of the DPP's advice. Counsel to the defendant, Nkechi Agubuzo, had however argued that the court has a duty to balance the cause of justice and same should be exercised judicially and judiciously. The president of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Pengasan, Mr. Festus Osifo, is appealing to the incoming government not to rush decisions about ending or not ending the fuel subsidy regime, but should instead consult widely before taking a decision on the matter. Mr. Osifo spoke to a select journalist in Abuja, where he advised the incoming administration to focus on how to address the challenges of multiple exchange rates in the country, which he says has affected the livelihoods of Nigerians more than fuel subsidy. He urges the federal government to consider the opportunity costs of removing or continuing with the fuel subsidy regime before it decides on the matter. Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's over now to Anne for business news in Lagos.
Thank you, Gloria. Hello and welcome to Business News. The U.S. Central Bank has raised interest rates to the highest level in 16 years as it battles to tame rising prices. The Fed's hike by 0.25 basis points, the 10th in 14 months, has pushed interest rates to a range of between 5% and 5.25%, up from near zero in the month of March 2022. The moves have sharply raised borrowing costs across the country, spurring a slowdown in sectors like housing. The bank, however, indicates that it may be putting a pause to monetary policy tightening. The bank started aggressive interest rate hike last year as prices continued to increase at the fastest pace in decades. Well, it's official. Former MasterCard CEO Ajay Banga has been appointed as the next president of the World Bank. According to the World Bank, Mr. Banga's leadership is coming at a pivotal time for the development lender as it seeks to better address climate change. The Indian-American business leader, whose appointment to the 5-year term was confirmed today by the World Bank, is expected to take over the role from his predecessor, David Malpass, on June the 2nd. Let's head to the local stock market now. MTN Nigeria led losses at the exchange today. The details will be from Will Ibong.
Welcome to the stock market report. Yet another red day at the NGX and in 2 consecutive trading sessions. It's like fast and furious for investors as a renewed sell pressure on some big names like MTN Nigeria, leading the benchmark index lower today by 0.17%. But for some sectors, they had a good outing, like banking, which rose 0.17% today. And funny enough, it's on the greener side of the spectrum when we compare it to the overall close at the NGX. Zenith Bank, GTCO, Access Holdings, they stole the hearts of investors today as we saw a huge clamor for the company's stocks. Oil and gas was the outlier today. It rose today by almost 0.8%. Now, this is on the back of Adova, thanks to Adova, which climbed higher today by 9.25% to close at 18 naira 30 kobo, an increase of 1 naira 55 kobo to its share price. And we also see Academy Press there as well as Qtix PLC. Now, Transcorp, no longer on the moving train, slowed a lot in today's trading session, and it's no surprise, should I say, that we find Union Bank on the side of the chart. Well, investors have to take profits. Earnings reports are still trickling in, and many can't wait to cash in. Also, the global markets await the U.S. Fed Reserve's expected rate hike. Let's see how Nigeria's NGX might react to this or not. And that's the stock market report. I'm Will Ibong. It's back to you, Anne.
With that, we end business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Ayot Sunday.
Thank you, Anne. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has denied his country carried out an alleged drone attack on the Kremlin, which Russia says was an attempt on President Vladimir Putin's life. The Russian president's office said defenses downed 2 drones overnight. It also threatens to retaliate when and where it considered necessary. For more on this and other international stories, here's Simon Pusey with Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Russia says it has shot down 2 drones that were targeting the Kremlin in Moscow last night and accused Ukraine of attempting to kill President Vladimir Putin. Unverified footage on Russian social media showed smoke over central Moscow in the early hours of Wednesday. The Kremlin said the drones were disabled by special services using electronic radar assets. Mr. Putin's spokesman said he was not in the Kremlin at the time. Ukraine says it is making no comment. At least 8 students and a security guard have been killed after a shooting at a school in Serbia's capital, Belgrade. Here, footage of the alleged 14-year-old suspect being led away for questioning. Another 6 pupils and a teacher were injured in the attack and have been taken to hospital. There is still a heavy police presence at the school, with shocked students being consoled. Officials say the student is alleged to have used his father's gun. An investigation into the motives behind the incident is underway. An explosion derailed a freight train for the second day in a row in the Russian region bordering Ukraine, sending both the locomotive and some cars off the tracks. The incident occurred in the western Bryansk region, which borders both Ukraine and Belarus. Russian officials say pro-Ukrainian sabotage groups have made multiple attacks there since Russia sent tens of thousands of troops to Ukraine in February 2022. Operator Russian Railways earlier said around 20 wagons had come off the tracks due to what they called unauthorized interference. A Kenyan leader accused of ordering his followers to starve themselves to death has appeared in court as investigators search for more bodies in a forest in the east of the country. Kenyan authorities say the dead were members of the Good News International Church, led by Paul Mackenzie, who had predicted the world would end on April the 15th and ordered his followers to kill themselves to be the first to go to heaven. The death toll stands at 109, mostly children, found in mass graves, and 8 people found alive who later died, but that number could still rise further. The Interior Ministry said more than 400 people are missing. At least one person has died in heavy rains and floods which have hit Italy's northern Emilia-Romagna region over the last 24 hours. An elderly man drowned when he was cycling, swept away by the waters of a flooded river in the town of Castel Bolognese. Footage released by fire brigades show extensive flooding in an area between Bologna, Emilia-Romagna's capital, and the city of Ravenna on the Adriatic coast. They said they carried out around 400 rescue operations, evacuating dozens of people. Rehearsals took place in the dark in London in preparation for the coronation. Rehearsals in the dead of night saw the horse-drawn carriage and thousands of armed forces marching through the streets that will take the King from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey and back. It is set to be shorter than for his mother 70 years ago, at about 2 hours long. For the best part of 1,000 years, the kings and queens of England and Britain have been crowned at London's Westminster Abbey in a ceremony that has changed little throughout the centuries.
I know the House will join the nation and the Commonwealth in sending our very best wishes to their Majesties, the King and Queen, ahead of the coronation. This will be a moment of extraordinary national pride, a demonstration of our country's character, and an opportunity to look to the future in the spirit of service, unity and hope.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in his comments about the coronation? Across the House, we're all looking forward to the celebrations this weekend.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Well, it appears Manchester City aren't giving up in the title race just yet as they head back to the top of the table. Kelly Akiga is standing by with the very latest in sports news. Kelly.
And that's absolutely right, Ayo. This is sports news now. Let's begin here in Nigeria, where mobile technology brand Itel has partnered Airtel, Front Row Sports, United Nations Refugee Agency, to foster peace and unity among Nigerians through football in Lagos. The company recognized football as a unifying game while also pushing its latest Itel P40 smartphone.
Football promotes peace, harmony, and social cohesion. And Itel, manufacturer of mobile communications products and services, is using the game to bring people together across boundaries, cultures, and religions. Itel organizes a football competition with the theme Play for Power to introduce the recently launched Itel P40 smartphone into the market.
As we know, Itel is a very famous company in Nigeria. We are doing mobile phone business here. We have many end users from the local community. Yes, we really appreciate. So, by the way, we have done lots of CSR program to appreciate what they have done for us. So today we are here, we arranged this football game. As we know, football is very popular in Nigeria. We hope we can help the local children build more confidence, achieve their dream in the life, empower their life.
The company says ITEL P40, which is tagged one charge for 3 days, is a big battery smartphone designed to meet and connect users' needs.
It's the newest member of the ITEL P series, and it's a very powerful phone. It comes with 6,000 mAh battery. It's so powerful that once you charge that phone once, you can use it for 3 days. So just like football, it's a powerful game, a powerful event. You need energy, you need power to play 90 minutes of football. And if you can do 90 minutes, that means you are strong enough to also have the ITEL P40, to also enjoy the benefits of the ITEL P40.
We've been able to partner with ITEL to launch affordable 4G devices that enables people to be able to do all they need, and improve their lives and make more money. So we're glad to partner with ITEL on driving 4G handset penetration and affordability in Nigeria.
There are other side attractions like power challenge and races as the winners went home with school bags, phone accessories, T-shirts, caps, ITEL P40, among other gifts.
And in the continent, Nigeria's Golden Eaglets lost their second group game at the ongoing Under-17 African Cup of Nations in Algeria. Now, despite having a large share of possession and creating goal-scoring opportunities, the Eaglets lost 1-0 to Morocco. Morocco scored a goal through an own goal by Tochukwu Ogboji. Their last group game will be against South Africa on Saturday. Let's turn to the English Premier League now, where Liverpool kept alive their hopes of qualifying for next season's Champions League after Mohamed Salah continued his remarkable Anfield scoring form to help sink Fulham. Salah scored for the 8th home game in a row as the Reds won for the 5th successive Premier League game to maintain their flourishing late-season form. Now, elsewhere, Manchester City striker Erling Haaland broke the record for goals in a Premier League season after Pep Guardiola's men beat West Ham United 3-0, with the Norwegian Nathan Ake and Phil Foden all getting on the score sheet. Haaland scored his 35th league goal of the campaign against West Ham to move past Alan Shearer and Andrew Cole's previous best of 35. And that's Sports News Tonight. Thanks indeed for watching. It's back to Ayo.
Many thanks, Kelly. And the main news again. The Presidential Election Tribunal has fixed May the 8th for pre-hearing session on petitions by PDP's Atiku Abubakar and Labour Party's Peter Obi challenging the declaration of Senator Bola Tinubu as president-elect. Also today, the President-elect Bola Tinubu commended Governor Nyesom Wike for his role in ensuring that the presidency returned to the South as he commissioned some projects in the state. And Russia today accused Ukraine of attempting to kill President Vladimir Putin. It also says it shot down 2 drones believed to be targeting the Kremlin in Moscow last night. That's the news at 10. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. You have a good night.